Most people fix a bare patch in their lawn completely wrong, and I mean that literally. They throw some seed down, maybe some straw on top, water it a couple times, and 3 months later that same spot is bare again, sometimes worse than before. The reason has nothing to do with the seed you bought and everything to do with skipping a step almost nobody knows they're supposed to do first. My name's Denny. I've spent the last 20 years working on lawns for a living, and today I'm going to walk you through the actual repair process, the one that keeps a patch fixed permanently instead of coming back to haunt you every single season. Here's the mistake that dooms most bare patch repairs before a single seed even hits the ground. Homeowners treat a bare patch as a seeding problem, when in the vast majority of cases, it's actually a symptom of something else. And if you don't identify and fix that underlying cause first, you're just planting new grass into the exact same conditions that killed the old grass in the first place. It's the equivalent of repainting a wall that's actively leaking water without ever finding and fixing the leak. The new paint looks great for a few weeks, and then you're right back where you started. So before we get into how to actually seed a bare patch correctly, we need to talk about diagnosing why it went bare in the first place, because that step determines everything that comes after it. Let's walk through the most common causes, because the fix is completely different depending on which one you're actually dealing with. Compacted soil is one of the most common and most overlooked causes, especially in high-traffic areas like a path to a shed, a spot where kids play, or anywhere a dog runs a consistent route. Push a screwdriver into the bare patch and compare how easily it goes in versus a healthy section of lawn nearby. If it takes real effort to get more than an inch or two down in the bare spot but slides in easily elsewhere, compacted soil killed that grass and will kill new seed just as fast unless you address it first. Grub damage is another common culprit, and the test here is simple. Grab a section of the dead grass at the edge of the bare patch and give it a tug. If it lifts away like a loose piece of carpet with barely any root attached, grubs likely ate through the root system before the grass ever had a chance to go properly bare on its own. Dog urine spots have a very specific signature, a dead brown center with a ring of darker, almost too green grass around the outside edge, caused by the concentrated nitrogen in urine burning the center while diluted nitrogen at the edges acts like a mini fertilizer application. Fungal disease typically shows up as irregular patches, sometimes with a slightly different colored ring at the edge, and often appears somewhat suddenly, rather than developing gradually the way compaction or traffic damage does. And simple deep shade, from a tree canopy that's filled in over the years, or a structure casting consistent shadow, will bear out even healthy turfgrass varieties that need more direct sunlight than that spot is getting, no matter how many times you reseed it. Quick, before I walk you through the actual repair process, if you're serious about fixing problems like this at the root instead of patching the same spot every year, you need a real plan. That's why I wrote the book, a straight step-by-step blueprint to a greener lawn with fewer weeds, exactly what to buy, where to get it, and when to put it down. Scan the QR code or click the link below to grab your copy. Now let's get into the actual repair process. And I want to walk through this as a complete sequence because skipping any single step here is exactly how a patch comes back within a season. Step 1. Address whatever underlying cause you identified. If it's compaction, work the top 2 to 3 inches of soil loose with a hand cultivator or a garden fork before doing anything else, since seed dropped onto compacted soil either washes away in the next rain or fails to root deeply enough to survive its first dry stretch. If it was grubs, treat the area for grubs before reseeding. Otherwise, you're planting a fresh meal for the same population that caused the damage in the first place. If it's a dog spot, flush the area thoroughly with water first to dilute and move the excess nitrogen out of that concentrated center before you ever put seed down, since new seed dropped straight into a nitrogen-burned spot often fails simply from the residual salt concentration still sitting in that soil. If it's shade, either switch to a shade-tolerant grass variety specifically bred for lower light, or accept that grass genuinely isn't going to hold in that specific spot, and consider a ground cover or mulch bed instead, because no amount of reseeding overcomes a fundamental light deficit. Step 2. Once the underlying cause is handled, prepare the seedbed properly. Rake the dead grass and debris out of the area completely. Then loosen the top inch of exposed soil with a hand rake or cultivator so the surface isn't compacted or crusted over, since seed needs direct soil contact to germinate reliably rather than sitting on top of a hard surface where it can wash away or dry out before roots ever form. If your soil test or general assessment showed you're dealing with poor quality native soil, work a half-inch layer of quality compost into that loosened top inch, which both improves the immediate growing medium for new seed and continues feeding soil biology in that spot going forward. Step 3. Choose the right seed for your actual growing conditions, which sounds obvious but is where a lot of repairs go wrong from the very start. Match your grass type to what's already growing in the rest of your lawn, since mixing in a different variety creates a bare patch repair that's visibly a different shade or texture from the surrounding turf, essentially trading one obvious flaw for another. For high-traffic areas, look specifically for seed blends marketed as high-traffic or tall fescue-based, since these varieties are bred with tougher root systems and better wear tolerance than standard bluegrass blends. For shaded spots, use a seed blend specifically labeled for shade tolerance, typically featuring a higher percentage of fine fescue, which handles lower light levels considerably better than standard turf varieties. Step 4. Get the seeding rate and technique right. Spread seed at the rate listed on the bag for new lawn establishment, not the lighter overseeding rate, since a bare patch is starting from zero and needs the full establishment rate to achieve good density rather than a thin, patchy result that looks little better than what you started with. Rake the seed lightly into the loosened soil surface so it makes good contact without being buried too deep, since seed buried more than a quarter-inch down often fails to reach the surface before running out of stored energy. Then apply a thin layer, about a quarter-inch, of straw mulch or a specialized seed starter mulch product over the top, which holds moisture at the seed level and protects against birds and erosion without blocking germinating sprouts from reaching daylight. Step 5. And this is the step that determines success or failure more than almost anything else. Watering technique changes completely during establishment compared to your normal lawn watering routine. Water lightly, 2 to 3 times a day, just enough to keep the top half-inch of soil consistently moist without ever letting it dry out completely, since germinating seed and the earliest root hairs have zero drought tolerance and will die within hours of drying out during this critical window. This is the exact opposite of the deep, infrequent watering I recommend for an established lawn. And that difference trips a lot of people up since they either underwater a new patch using their normal established lawn habits, or they overcorrect once the grass sprouts and keep babying it with frequent shallow water long after it should have transitioned to a deeper, less frequent schedule. Let me walk you through the actual timeline, because knowing what to expect prevents you from either panicking too early or transitioning your watering schedule too soon. Days 1 through 5. Keep that light, frequent watering schedule going, and you likely won't see anything visible yet depending on your specific seed variety's germination time. Days 7 through 14. Most common cool season grass varieties begin germinating, and you'll start seeing thin green sprouts emerging across the patch. This is a critical transition window. Keep the light, frequent watering going. Don't let up yet even though you're seeing growth, since the root system at this stage is still extremely shallow and vulnerable. Weeks 3 through 4. Once the new grass has been mowed 2 to 3 times at your normal mowing height, which is your signal the root system has developed enough to handle it, you can begin transitioning toward deeper, less frequent watering, gradually stretching out the interval between waterings while increasing the amount per session. By week 6 to 8, the patch should be fully integrated into your normal watering and mowing routine, matching the density and color of the surrounding lawn if you correctly address the underlying cause back in step 1. Here's the part that actually prevents the patch from coming back, because a lot of repairs succeed short-term and then fail again the following season, and it almost always traces back to skipping the root cause diagnosis I walked through earlier. If you fixed compaction with a one-time loosening but that spot still gets the same heavy foot traffic that compacted it originally, it will likely compact again over time, and pairing your repair with a longer-term fix like stepping stones through that specific path, or a biannual compost top dressing routine for that section specifically, addresses the actual recurring cause rather than just the symptom. If grubs caused the original damage, staying on a preventative grub treatment schedule going forward, rather than treating reactively after the next bare patch appears, keeps this from becoming an annual repair job. If it was a dog spot, training your dog to a designated relief area, or simply flushing that specific spot with water regularly if a designated area isn't practical, prevents the same concentrated nitrogen burn from recurring in that exact location every few weeks. There's a faster alternative worth knowing for anyone who doesn't want to wait 6 to 8 weeks for seed to fully establish, especially for a small, highly visible patch right next to a front walkway or entrance. A small piece of sod, cut to match your existing grass type and purchased from a local sod farm or garden center, can be installed directly into a properly prepared bare patch and gives you an essentially instant, fully established repair rather than the gradual seed germination timeline. The soil preparation steps are identical, addressing the underlying cause and loosening the seedbed exactly the way you would before seeding. But instead of scattering seed, you're cutting a piece of sod to fit the exact dimensions of your bare patch and laying it directly onto the prepared soil, pressing it down firmly to ensure good root-to-soil contact. Water sod even more aggressively than seed for the first 1 to 2 weeks, since sod arrives with an actively growing but severely stressed root system that was just cut away from its original growing bed, and it needs consistent moisture to re-establish those roots into your soil before it can function normally. Sod costs meaningfully more per square foot than seed, often several times as much, which is exactly why it makes the most sense for small, highly visible patches rather than large problem areas, where seeding the full area remains the far more economical choice despite the longer timeline. I want to be honest about why this diagnose-first approach isn't the way most bagged reseeding products are marketed. And it's not some deliberate deception, it's just that a bag of seed with a photo of lush grass on the front sells better with a simple 3-step process printed on the back than it does with an honest explanation that you need to diagnose an underlying cause first. Most reseeding product instructions assume the bare patch exists for generic reasons like winter damage or general wear, which is sometimes true but skips entirely past the much more common causes I walk through: grubs, compaction, urine burn, disease, and shade, each of which requires its own specific fix before seed goes down for the repair to actually stick long-term. It's simpler to print rake, seed, water done on a bag than to walk a customer through 5 different possible root causes, but that simplicity is exactly why so many bare patch repairs fail within a single season. One more product decision worth getting right during seedbed preparation, because it's a step people either skip entirely or get wrong by grabbing whatever fertilizer bag happens to be in the garage. New seed benefits specifically from a starter fertilizer, which is a distinct product from your regular lawn fertilizer, formulated with a much higher proportion of phosphorus relative to nitrogen, since phosphorus plays an outsized role in early root development that established turf simply doesn't need as much of once it's already mature. Look for a bag with a middle number noticeably higher than what you'd find on a standard maintenance fertilizer, something in the range of 10-20-10 or similar, and work it into the soil at the same time you're loosening the seedbed before seed goes down, so the phosphorus is positioned right where those first root hairs will actually reach it. Using your regular high nitrogen maintenance fertilizer instead of a proper starter formula on new seed isn't catastrophic, but it pushes the plant toward leaf growth before the root system has developed enough to support it, producing a patch that looks deceptively lush within the first couple of weeks, while actually building a weaker root foundation than a properly starter-fed patch would have, which shows up later as reduced drought tolerance and slower long-term establishment compared to doing this step correctly from the start. Here's your plan. Before you buy a single bag of seed, diagnose the actual cause of your bare patch using the screwdriver test for compaction, the tug test for grubs, checking for that dark ring pattern for a urine spot, and simply assessing whether the area gets adequate direct sunlight. Address that underlying cause first, loosening compacted soil, treating for grubs, flushing a urine spot, or accepting a shade-tolerant variety or alternative ground cover for a genuinely low-light area. Then prepare the seedbed by clearing debris and loosening the top inch of soil. Choose seed that matches your existing lawn and specific site conditions. Seed at the full establishment rate with light mulch coverage, and commit to that light, frequent watering schedule for the first 2 to 3 weeks before transitioning to normal deep watering once the grass has been mowed a few times. And pair the repair with whatever longer-term prevention addresses the actual recurring cause, so you're fixing this patch once instead of reseeding the exact same spot again next spring. That's the complete process, and it's genuinely the difference between a bare patch that stays fixed and one that becomes an annual chore. Thanks a lot for watching, and let me know in the comments what's actually causing your bare patches. I'd guess compaction and grubs between the two of them account for most of what people deal with. Now, if you're serious about fixing your lawn without wasting more money guessing at products, you need the right equipment and a plan. My book appearing on your screen right now is a straight step-by-step blueprint to a greener lawn with fewer weeds, exactly what to buy, where to get it, and when to put it down. Scan the QR code or click the link below to get your copy. or head over to fixyourlawnin30days.com to get the lawn you deserve. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.